To set up an offset web or Perfector press, first we'll go to settings, and under dockets we'll go into press. On the press table we'll hit new, and from here we can configure it. So we'll enter in the name of our press. The group is just for organizing and being able to find your press easier. So they are customizable, but for this case we'll pick offset. Under format, we'll start with offset, but we'll come back to web and Perfector. The setup is almost identical with the exception of maybe just one or two fields. The stock feed type we're going to keep as specified by stock. You might want to change it if you were to order all your paper by roll, but cut it down to sheets before feeding it into the offset. We'll enter in the number of heads for the press. We'll enter in the run cost per hour. This could be just your hourly rate for your employee. It can be your burden rate, which includes your overhead and not just the wage of the employee, but like the benefits and the pension and all of that stuff. So for this one, we'll put in 20. The setup time is for the overall press setup plus the initial head. And the additional head setup is for any additional plate. So on a 4-color press that's printed 4 colors one side, you would have one initial setup plus 3 additional heads. And if it were a 4x4, you would have 2 initial setups plus 6 additional heads. You can identify on a job whether you're allowed to pick work and turn or work and tumble or both. For work turn or work tumble side 2 setup time, this is normally how long it really just takes maybe to ink up again or to reload the tray of paper. So we'll say 5. If you do aqueous coating, you can enter in how long a setup time is. You can enter in the setup price you want to charge for it. We have a minimum width, minimum length, max width, and max length. Right now these are just informational, but will eventually be used for best press selection. Registration leader and trailer would be for use with like color bars or barcodes or things that you need additional room on the print file. The print safe margins as well. Is there any additional spacing around that you need? So when we calculate in position, we make sure we only put enough up. Side 1 max color and side 2 max color. Again, it's just informational currently, but will be used eventually with best press selection. Same with minimum and max impressions, minimum and max caliber. You can indicate the lift height of your press in inches and how long it takes to reload. This will be calculated in based on your paper, and it will determine, based on the caliber of your paper, and it will determine how much extra time you actually need every time that you have to reload the lift. You can enter in the gripper margin. You can enter in any notes, and if you've already done all your GL account selection, you can enter it here. Otherwise, you can wait and do it on the GL account page. So once we save it, we should be presented with more options. So under the production settings, we can set up a speed table. So we can choose if it steps or averages. So does it jump to the next speed immediately, or does it find a slope and find a speed in between? So when you're creating this, you could put in just one speed. You can say a speed up to a certain amount of sheets. In this case, we'll just do a high number. You say how many impressions an hour you can do. So we'll say 7,500. And you can choose, is that for all sizes, or do you need to set up a different speed depending on what size is going through the press? If you have additional scales that you need to enter, you can hit save and add new, or in this case, I'm just going to hit save. You can choose if the waste is going to calculate per head. It's actually per plate, or if you just want an overall flat and or additional percentage. So we'll say calculate per head is no, and we'll say new. And again, you can do it up to the number of press sheets. But if you just want one overall waste, you can say I want 500 flat overs plus 2%. And again, if you want to add in additional scales, you can hit save and add new, or just save to close it. You do have the option of entering in a minimum price. So outside of plates, if the press doesn't hit a certain amount between setup and run, you can have it go to a minimum price. For hourly rate, you can choose whether you want to do the scales by press sheets or by hours. So is it up to 5,000 press sheets, I charge $20 an hour, and up to 10,000, I charge 15? Or is it hours? Up to 1 hour, I charge $25. Up to 2 hours, I charge $20. And again, you can pick step or averaged, and then you can enter in your hourly rate. So again, if we were doing press sheets, we could say up to 5,000, I charge 55. Do a second scale and say up to 10,000, I charge 45. You can enter in additional plate wear. So if you actually want to charge your client when you run down a plate, you can enter in that you can get 10,000 impressions out of a plate, and it takes me 5 minutes to change each plate. So if I do a very large job with a lot of impressions, it will actually calculate out the additional amount of plates I need and include the plate change time in my overall production time. In here we can enter in our plate scales. So again, if you have one plate price, you can just enter in nines, and it costs $7 a plate, and I charge 15. If you want to do additional up to the number of plates that, up to 2 plates, it's 15 each. Up to 5 plates, it's 10 each. You can hit save and new and add additional scales. So in this case, we'll hit save. So for the ink coverage, you have the ability of adding light, average, or heavy. This is just a one-time cost per 1,000 sheets. And again, you can do scales, so you can just say up to 5,000 sheets. It costs me $2 a thousand. I charge 4. For average amount of ink, it's 4 and 6, and for 6 and 8. And then I can add new, and we can say up to 10,000 is 1 and 3, 3 and 6, and 6 and 9. 3 and 5, and 5 and 7. So now we have 2 scales. So if I were to select an ink coverage on my job, it would charge an additional $4 per 1,000 press sheets. If I was doing light, $6 if I was doing average. We also have an ink coverage speed modifier. So if you are doing anything light, average, or heavy, you could do something like, just total up to 9999, and on heavy, we go to 80% of the press speed. So where our press speed is 7,500 impressions per hour, if we are running a heavy coverage, it's going to reduce that speed to 80% and then calculate the time based on that. And aqueous coating, it's similar to the ink coverage. It's going to be a price per 1,000 press sheets. So again, we can do a scale, or we can just say overall, it's going to cost me $5 and I'm going to charge 10. You can add department items to this press, so whether it's wash-up times or maybe different kinds of plates or any kind of setup, any department items you add to this will pull onto every job that this press is selected on. If you have a job that's set up to be digital and then you change it to offset, it's going to remove any department items that maybe were brought from that digital press and then add in any department items from the offset press. And you can also add in notes. So again, these are sticky notes, so basically they will copy over to every job. So if there's anything specific that you need to remember, you can have it show up on every job. So if we return to the top and we change it to Perfector, you'll see a couple fields jumped. So if I just switch it back, it gets rid of the work turn. So going back to Perfector. So the only difference in this, there is no real difference in the setup outside of the work and turn. Basically, the Perfector press calculates offset exactly the same, with the exception is that it only calculates one pass as it prints side 1 and side 2 at the same time. And so for web, pretty much the same thing. It will calculate side 1 and side 2 at the same time. You do get one additional field, which is an additional stock charge, and that is for roll breakage. So it doesn't affect your inventory. It's just an additional charge to the client. So if you set like a 10% stock charge, because you can't always use the whole roll, it just accounts for that extra waste that you have. Most of the web press stuff is obviously done differently by stock, and which is calculated at weight. The configuration for the web press is basically the same as what it is for regular offset. There is one here, and that is a cut increment. So if you do have a variable cutoff, you can enter it in. If you have a standard one, you can obviously, and then if you have a variable, you probably want to define it per job template or per job